I've had many leading experts on this show, including Matthew Walker, and they've all said the same thing about sleep. They've said it's the biggest positive investment you can make in your own performance. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if you're consistently tired, poor decision-making will follow and eventually cause other things to fail in your life. So if you're looking to optimize your recovery, you should start looking at what you're sleeping on. Our sponsor, Helix, makes high-quality mattresses tailored to your body. It doesn't matter if you run hot, sleep on your side, or need something firm. Helix has a mattress for you. And I asked them recently to send one to a member of my team, and Juan received it. And we travel a lot, so when he's home, quality sleep really matters. And he told me he's getting the best sleep of his life. And the data backs it up, with 82% of people in a Helix study saying they saw an increase in their deep sleep. And with a 120-night trial, you've got 4 months to prove it to yourself. You can get 27% off at helixsleep.com/diary. That's helixsleep.com/diary. If you're running a business, people have probably told you to use AI or get left behind. And I get that urgency. Still, AI doesn't fix a messy business. It exposes one, because AI can only work with the information it can see. So if you ask AI something about your business, about stock or sales or customers or about your team, that information needs to be connected to the AI to be useful. That's the idea behind NetSuite by Oracle, the sponsor of this episode. NetSuite is the AI-powered business management suite that securely connects your financials, your inventory, your commerce, your HR, and your CRM into a single source of truth. And with NetSuite Next, AI is built into that connected system. It can surface useful insights, help with routine work, and let you ask questions about your business in plain English. For the first time ever, you can try NetSuite Next for free if your business is generating 7 figures or more. Just go to netsuite.ai/Bartlett. That's netsuite.ai/Bartlett. What advice would you give to people around that age, say the early 20s, just graduated and thinking about going off into the world? Because I hear a lot of these stories about certain small factors can have such a tremendous impact on your outcomes, like the city you live in. Would you encourage younger people to go and get into those big cities if they're trying to have careers in things like journalism or media or whatever, or business? And how much of a swing does that have? Because I always think, I'm on Dragon's Den and I see these entrepreneurs coming in and pitching tech companies, and I always think, sometimes I think you're at like a 90% disadvantage versus just being over there on the west coast of America, in San Francisco. I think sometimes I think it's more than a 90% disadvantage, but situational and environmental factors on outcomes.
It's always been this puzzle in many countries, but particularly the United States, about why do immigrants do so well? And, one of the explanations was immigrants to the United States have always been very aggressive about seeking educational opportunities, or maybe they brought with them education. So that was one argument for the longest time. But now we realize actually it's less that and more that they, unlike many Native Americans, are willing to move where opportunities are. So the immigrants are mobile in a way. They don't have any roots. They don't have family that's keeping them in one place or another. They simply make a beeline for the places where they can, further their own economic and personal interests the quickest and the most efficiently. Native people don't do that because they have too many encumbrances. So my advice to people, young people, is always, where do you want to move? It's the first question you should ask yourself. Your default should be, you're going to move somewhere, right? Don't fall in the trap of when you're 23, of doing the comfortable thing and staying near family and friends. There'll be plenty of time for that later. The only question on your mind should be, where should I move? And once you decide where you move, I think a lot of other things fall into place. So if you are someone who imagines that you would like to start a company in the tech world, and then move to Northern California or Austin, Texas, or Tel Aviv or whatever. Go where I think you're absolutely right. You need to go where the opportunity is. It's not going to come to you magically. And you are at a huge disadvantage if you're not there. There's just no question about that. People have confused the efficiency of digital communication, the kind of the logistical efficiency of digital communication, with emotional efficiency and kind of psychological efficiency. It is only logistically efficient. It does not resolve it doesn't help someone trust you more or take a chance on you or get to know you in all of your complexity.
Yes. I wish, yeah. It's one of the things my parents said to me at a very young age was we lived in Devon, which is, Devon, right? Down in the corner from the farms. And they were very clear at a young age. They said, you've got to leave here. So just so you're all well aware, for the four of us, you have all got to go out of this city. So, and we were all very clear on that. And all of my friends are still there, every single one of them. Mm-hmm. All of my best friends are still in Plymouth. But even if they went to university in another city, they came back. It's not to say that they're not happier than me. And this is maybe my next question, which is, because I hear that immigrant tale all the time, that immigrants tend to have better outcomes relatively, whatever it might be. But my question becomes, are they happier? And I say this actually because of a conversation I was having last night with my friend who has his family have built $1 billion company in this country. The dad was the first generation immigrant here. The dad is just completely overwhelmed with work. Like, he is obsessed to the point now the son said to me last night, I don't actually think he knows what makes him happy at all. But because he was in survival mode when he came here, they've built $1 billion. It's actually, I think it was worth $5 billion now. But is he happy? And I sometimes ponder that the first sort of generation immigrant is on survival mode. The second generation has the chance of being in maybe a thriving self-actualization situation. But I don't know if you had any light to shed on first generation happiness.
I'm dubious of this. So I all of this happiness stuff, and I say this, and I'm fully open to the possibility that I'm wrong, but my understanding of happiness is, because of the research on happiness, is that it's a fairly stable trait. In other words, there are people who are happy, regardless of where they are, and people who are not, or people who don't appear happy, or people for whom happiness represents itself differently. So I would say of your friend's father, maybe he is happy. He just expresses it differently. He built a massive business. He's made his family stable. He's created a secure beachhead in a whole new country. You don't think that makes him happy when he puts his head on the pillow at night? I think it probably does. It's just not, it's not the kind of lie on the beach, read a good book happy. But it sounds to me like a pretty amazing set of accomplishments that would make him, will he die happy having done that? Yes, he will, I think. I don't know. I never met the man, but I'm wondering.
Billionaires generally.
What's that?
People say they've never met a happy billionaire.
I don't believe that. I think people who've accomplished something like that, they derive a different kind of satisfaction from it, but it's not a lesser kind of satisfaction. Do I work more than most people? If I look at the cohort of people I went to college with, university with, do I work more than most of them? Yeah, probably. Do I spend less time, watching movies and reading books and going on holiday? Yes, absolutely. Does that mean I'm less happy? No, I think I'm pretty happy. I don't have a problem with it. I'm a little bit skeptical of this narrow definition of happiness.
So I think it's based on this idea that to be happy or whatever, you have to have this kind of recipe of ingredients, and they have to be equally balanced. So you have to have, strong interpersonal relationships or meaningful connections. You have to have, exercise, these kinds of things. So when you see an individual who's so out of balance because they just work every waking hour of every day, and they don't make time for friends, families, or walking the dog, and they're consumed by it, people from the outside go, well, that's not a happy person. And I would think the science would support the fact that people tend to be happier when they have stronger, more meaningful relationships, and they have more balance in their lives, generally.
Yeah. No, I think so. You understand? So let's go back to your friend's father. Mm-hmm. So your friend's father is not someone about whom we can generalize.
Yeah.
He's clearly he's an outlier of some sort. I imagine there's a whole series of traits that he's in the 99th percentile on. Probably incredibly intelligent, incredibly driven, list them all. So that kind of person is never going to have a balanced life. I mean, you could put him in, the the cornfields of Iowa and say you're going to be a farmer. That's all you can do. And he's going to be someone who's like working, 80 hours a week, and right. That's just his temperament. So the question is, what I'm saying is, happiness for him is probably going to look differently than happiness for lots of other people. But he's highly unusual. For the average person, yes, balance is appropriate. But you didn't ask me about an average person. You asked me about someone who built an enormous business from scratch.
Yeah, I worry. I think I worry sometimes. Part of the reason I think I ask the question is for myself, that I'm being dragged by my own insecurities. So I sit here with a lot of, successful, maybe billionaire CEOs that have built these great companies, and you find out that the reason they built them is because their mother, in the case of one of my previous guests, which was on 2 weeks ago, and he said this on the podcast, he's built $1 billion beer company. You find out it's because his mother, when he was a young kid, basically always convinced him he was never enough. She'd come into his room, smash his toys, and say things to him to convince him that he was just never good enough. Mm-hmm. So he's had this almost neurotic, obsessive drive to prove to the world that he is good enough. And you wonder how voluntary that drive is, and what it's come at the cost of. And is he really, is this individual really happy and fulfilled, or are they just being pulled by their insecurities?
Yeah. But, there are, maybe another way of saying this is that, so to use that person as an example, so he took a kind of trauma and made something productive out of it. He had a great deal of certain personal costs, but he took something that might have defeated others and ended up contributing substantially to society. He may not be happy, but I would describe his life as a triumph, right? And the other thing I would say is that the language of happiness has to go alongside this question of what contribution you're making to the world you live in. That there are many people who are not personally happy, but who make enormous contributions. And that's a parallel, and in many cases, far more important function. Was Florence Nightingale happy? Probably not. She's as far as I can tell from what I know about her life, she had all kinds of psychological issues and whatever. But she made an enormous contribution that continues to this day, right? She started a whole, so there are, like I said, I would like to have to evaluate people's lives along a whole series of dimensions and understand that not everyone can satisfy each of those dimensions in any moment.
If you're running a business, people have probably told you to use AI or get left behind. And I get that urgency. Still, AI doesn't fix a messy business. It exposes one, because AI can only work with the information it can see. So if you ask AI something about your business, about stock or sales or customers, or about your team, that information needs to be connected to the AI to be useful. That's the idea behind NetSuite by Oracle, the sponsor of this episode. NetSuite is the AI-powered business management suite that securely connects your financials, your inventory, your commerce, your HR, and your CRM into a single source of truth. And with NetSuite Next, AI is built into that connected system. It can surface useful insights, help with routine work, and let you ask questions about your business in plain English. For the first time ever, you can try NetSuite Next for free if your business is generating 7 figures or more. Just go to netsuite.ai/Bartlett. That's netsuite.ai/Bartlett.